Okay.
We having a lecture.
Yeah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa kafa. ثم الصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى وبعد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Inshallah, today we'll continue our class on the explanation of 40 Hadith of al-Nawawi by our noble scholar Ibn Rajab al-Hanbalee. And today we'll move on to Hadith number 2, which is the Hadith of Umar radiallahu anhu. We spoke about Umar in the beginning of the lecture, of the class, which is the Hadith of An-Niyya, and we mentioned the virtue of Umar. And we spoke a lot about Umar. He's the same narrator of this hadith. That is why Imam Nawawi said, "An Umar radiyallahu anhu aydan," meaning this hadith is also from Umar radiyallahu anhu. So Umar radiyallahu anhu said, "Baynama nahnu julusun inda Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam dhata yawm." He said, one day we were sitting in the presence of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ittala alayna rajulun, and behold, a man popped up out of nowhere. Shadidu bayad al-thiyab. His garment is extremely white. His thobe is extremely white. Shadidu sawad al-sha'r, and his hair is extremely black. La yuro alayhi athar al-safar. You cannot see any traces of traveling on him, meaning traces of traveling cannot be seen on that individual. وَلَا يَعْرِفُهُ مِنَّا أَحَدٌ, and no one amongst us know him. Think about the reason why he mentioned this. Why did he say no one amongst us know us?
Because they don't, they ain't got maybe they don't.
They didn't see no sign of traveling.
They did not see, so we did not see no sign of traveling. So if he's not a traveler, then he has to be a resident, right?
Yeah.
If he's a resident, how come no one
Know him.
You understand? So they are very amazed. And of course, during those days, streets are not paved, and the desert land is dusty. So when you travel and come back, you see the traces of what? Traveling, which is your garment has to be dusty, your head has to be, shaggy to the end. But he said, Shadid is ashar. His hair is extremely black and his garment is extremely white. And we cannot see traces of traveling on him. So if he's not a traveler, he has to be a resident. If he's a resident, how come no one know him? So this is very amazing and puzzling. They can't understand this. So they said, Hatta jalasa ila nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So he proceeded until he stood before the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. فَأَسْنَدَ رُكْبَتَيْهِ إِلَى رُكْبَتَيْهِ. So he connected his knees to the knee of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَوَضَعَ كَفَّيْهِ عَلَى فَخِذَيْهِ, and he placed his hands on his thigh. And then he said, Ya Muhammad, said, O Muhammad. And he said, O Muhammad, because this is how the Bedouins used to call Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They call him by his name. But the companions are forbidden from calling the Prophet by his name. So if someone say Ya Muhammad, they know that no, he's not from here. He must have come from the Badia, from the village. So Jibril said, Ya Muhammad. He said, Oh Muhammad, akhbirni an Islam. And he also used that phrase, meaning he addressed the Prophet in that manner to also disguise himself, to make himself like, okay, I'm not here, I'm not from here, and I don't know about Islam, so I'm here to ask about Islam. So he said, akhbirni an Islam, tell me about Islam. What is Islam? And the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Islam, Islam is an tashhada an la ilaha illallah, to testify that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah. Wa tuqim as-salah, and to establish the 5 daily prayers. وَتُؤْتِيَ الزَّكَاةِ, and to give zakat. وَتَصُومَ رَمَضَانَ, and to fast the month of Ramadan. وَتَحُجَّ الْبَيْتِ إِنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا, and to perform pilgrimage to the sacred house of Allah if you are able to do so. When the Prophet said this, he said to the Prophet, Sadaqt, you are speaking the truth. So the companion said, فَعَجِبْنَا لَهُ. So we were also amazed, like, how come you are asking and you are saying to him, you have spoken the truth, as if you have already known the answer. So this is some strange thing happening from this strange man. So they said, فَعَجِبْنَا لَهُ. We are very amazed. You are asking and you are saying that he has spoken the truth. How do you know? ثُمَّ قَالَ, and then he said, أَخْبِرْنِي عَنِ الْإِيمَانِ. Tell me about Iman. What is faith? قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, Al-Iman, Iman is, faith is أن تؤمن بالله, to believe in Allah, وملائكته, and His angel, وكتبه, and His book, ورسله, and His messengers, واليوم الآخر, and the last day, وتؤمن بالقدر خيره وشره, and to believe in the destiny, the good of it and the bad of it. قال صدقت. And again he said to him, what? You are speaking the truth. فَعَجِبْنَا لَهُ. So the companion said, and we are amazed of this man. تَسْأَلُهُ وَتُصَدِّقُهُ. You are asking him a question and you are affirming that he has spoken the truth. How come you are asking and you are affirming? قال فَأَخْبِرْنِي عَنِ الْإِحْسَانِ. Then he said, tell me about ihsan. What is ihsan? And the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Ihsan an ta'bud Allah ka'annaka tara. فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. And that is to worship Allah the Almighty as if you can see Allah. And if you cannot see Him, then know that He, Allah the Almighty, can see you. Our scholars said these are the two levels of Ihsan. The first level, which is better than the second, to be able to worship Allah the Almighty as if you can see Allah. And the second level is if you cannot do that, then at least worship Allah the Almighty, having the consciousness that He is what? Observing you and seeing what you are doing. And if you know that He's watching you, then of course you will make sure that you pray in a manner that is pleasing to Allah the Almighty. So the Prophet again said, he again said, Sadaqt, you have spoken the truth. So the companions also said, and we are still amazed of him, تَسْأَلُهُ وَتُصَدِّقُهُ. You're asking him and you're affirming that he has spoken the truth. And then he said, أَخْبِرْنِي عَنِ السَّاعَةِ. Tell me about the hour. So the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا الْمَسْئُولُ عَنْهَا بِأَعْلَمَ مِنَ السَّائِلِ. He said, the one who is being questioned does not know better than the one who is questioning. Meaning the one who is being questioned doesn't know better than the questioner. So from here, it is understood that the Prophet is aware of who is asking the question. He knows that that is Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam. Then Jibreel said, فَأَخْبِرْنِي عَنْ أَمَارَاتِهَا. So tell me about the signs of the last day. What are the signs of the hour? And the Prophet ﷺ said, أَنْ تَلِدَ الْأَمَةُ رَبَّتَهَا. When the slave girl gives birth to her owner, meaning to her Lord. وَأَنْ تَرَى الْحُفَاةَ. And we'll come to the explanation of this, all the hadith. وَأَنْ تَرَى الْحُفَاةَ الْعُرَاةَ الْعَالَةَ رِعَاءَ الشَّاءِ يَتَطَاوَلُونَ فِي الْبُنْيَانِ. And to see al-hufat. Hufat is a plural of hafi, meaning barefooted. People who walk with no shoes on. Al-urat, meaning naked, meaning they don't have clothes to cover themselves. Why? Due to poverty. Then the Prophet said, Al-ala, poor. يَتَطَاوَلُونَ فِي الْبُنْيَانِ. And these people who are known to be walking barefooted, naked, and poor, they will reach to a level of competing with one another in building what? Mansions and high buildings. And we will come to the explanation like we said. So, Umar said, ثُمَّ الطَّلَقْ. Then afterwards, he asked this question, he left. فَلَبِثْتُ مَلِيًّا. Umar says, so I remained for a while, did not say anything. And then the Prophet ﷺ said to me, Ya Umar, O Umar, أَتَدَرِي مَنِ السَّائِلِ. do you know who the questioner is? And then I said, Allahu wa Rasuluhu a'lam. Only Allah and His Messenger know this. And then the Prophet said, فَإِنَّهُ جِبْرِيلٌ أَتَاكُمْ يُعَلِّمُكُمْ دِينَكُمْ. That is Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, who came to you to teach you about your religion. So here it is also understood that the angels can transform themselves to human, right? They can change the nature upon which Allah the Almighty has given them. So this is one of the qualities of the angels. They can transform. So now we're going to go back to the explanation of our noble scholar Ibn Rajab of this hadith, beginning from the definition of al-Islam. We know the common definition of Islam that we usually read, وهو الاستسلام لله بالتوحيد والانقياد له بالطاعة والخلوص من الشرك, right? Submitting to Allah the Almighty with tawheed and yielding to Him with obedience and freeing yourself from shirk. But here in this hadith, the Prophet defined Islam with this statement when he was asked. So if somebody asks you, what is the definition of Islam? You don't have to go to هو الاستسلام لله بالتوحيد والانقياد له بالطاعة والخلوص من الشرك. You can just go ahead and say Islam is, as the Prophet defined it, أن تشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله وتقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة وتصوم رمضان وتحج البيت. This is the definition that Islam, the Prophet gave Islam. So noble scholars said, فالإسلام قد فسره النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بأعمال الجوارح. He said the Prophet has explained Islam with the actions of the limbs, meaning the apparent actions that we do. Because if you look at prayers, prayer is the action of the limb, right? It's something that we do openly. Fasting is action of the limb, because we're starving our bodies. Performing Hajj, right? Performing Hajj is also something that involves our body and money, and also zakat. But if you look at Iman, the principles of Iman all relate to the creed. Believing in Allah the Almighty is something that you do in your heart. Believing in the angels is something that you do in your heart. The last day, all these are things related to the heart. So he said that if the Prophet ﷺ has explained Islam with the actions of the limbs that are apparent. However, these actions, the apparent actions, are divided into three. One of them is absolutely physical, and the other is absolutely financial, and the third, the link between physical and financial. So let us see what are examples of the act of worship that are absolutely physical, meaning they relate to the action of the limbs. Can somebody give me an example? Salat. Right? The prayer is absolutely the limb. You don't have to have money to what? To pray. Everyone can pray, right? And some of them are absolutely, another example of an act of worship that's absolutely physical. Fasting. Right? Fasting is also one of it. Ibadah. Worship is also one of it. As a matter of fact, the Prophet, he said worship, right? So, we're talking about different forms of worship, right? So here we say worship, fasting is worship, right? But it is something that relates to our physical limbs, right? So, as a matter of fact, if you don't have money, the Prophet ﷺ used to come to his house and he asked, do you have anything in the house? And he said, what? No. What does he do? Fasting. This tells you that fasting has nothing to do with money. Right? Now let us look at the act of worship that is absolutely financial. It's not absolutely. It's relatively. Zakat. Right? Zakat is something that relates to money. It has nothing to do with your physical strength. That is why if a baby has money that reaches nisab, zakat has to be given out of it. Zakat has nothing to do with reaching puberty. It doesn't have nothing to do with you being what? Strength or being in the prison. No. As long as your money reach the nisab, you have to pay the zakat. So for example, somebody died and left behind a child, right? The child is an infant in the cradle, but the person left about $1 million or $100,000. If the year evolve around it, they have to give zakat out from the money of the baby. Right? So zakat is something, act of worship that is absolutely financial. Now the third blends between financial and physical. What is it? Hajj. Right? Because Hajj, you have to be physically able and financially able. You may be financially able but physically unable. Hajj is not mandatory upon you, except if you have someone who can do it on your behalf. Because Hajj can be done on someone else's behalf. So this is how our noble scholar categorized these acts of Islam that we do with our limbs. All right. Now let's move on. He said, وفي رواية ابن حبان أضاف إلى ذلك الاعتمار. There's another narration of the same hadith, but this narration is the narration of Ibn Hibban. He mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ also added al-i'timar, meaning performing umrah. Meaning he said to Jibril, after mentioning the 5 pillars, he also mentioned and to perform umrah. Wal-ghusl min al-janaba, and to perform ghusl when one is in a state of ritual impurity, meaning the major ritual impurity. If in a state of janaba, perform ghusl. وإتمام الوضوء, and performing wudu in its complete manner. وفي هذا تنبيه على أن جميع الواجبات الظاهرة داخلة في مسمى الإسلام. Honorable scholar Ibn Rajab then said, this statement of the Prophet ﷺ in this narration of Ibn Hibban indicates that all mandatory actions, meaning the apparent actions of Islam, fall in the category of the definition of Islam. However, the 5 pillars are the foundations. But performing Umrah also fall as part of what? Islam. Performing wudu is part of Islam. Performing ghusl from janaba is part of Islam. But the 4 pillars are the foundations. Example, this is a building. Everything in this building come together to perform, to establish the masjid. But the most important part of this building is the foundation, the pillars. When the pillars are not there, the building is not, it doesn't exist, right? So, but if the pillars are there and there is no roof, will it serve its purpose? No, right? So roof is mandatory part of the building, okay? So performing wudu, in order for your prayer to be accepted, you have to perform wudu. So here, our noble scholar, Imam Ibn Rajab is saying that the 5 pillars that the Prophet mentioned are the most important part of Islam, but this is not the only things that are required from us to do in Islam. And he will mention other ahadith in which the Prophet ﷺ defined Islam. And then he said, وَإِنَّمَا ذَكَرَهَا هَهُنَا أُصُولُ الْإِسْلَامِ الَّذِي تَنْبَنِي عَلَيْهَا كَمَا سَيَأْتِي فِي حَدِيثِ Ibn Umar. He said the Prophet only mentioned in this hadith the usul, meaning the pillars and the principles of Islam. But we will explain this further in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar, and that is the 3rd hadith in the 40 hadith. ومما يدل على أن جميع أعمال الظاهرة تدخل في الإسلام Hadith al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam يدل أن من كمل الإتيان بمباني الإسلام الخمسة كان مسلما حقا. And then Ibn Rajab said, whoever fulfilled these 5 pillars of Islam is the real Muslim, the actual Muslim, the true Muslim, right? مع أن من أقر الخمسة كان مسلما حقا مع أن من أخر بالشهادتين صار مسلما حكما. But the one who affirmed the shahadatain, if somebody said La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, he is Muslim theoretical, but not practical until he put the rest of the pillars into practice. So if somebody says La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, we consider him Muslim. That is why the scholars mentioned afterwards, and our noble scholar Ibn Rajab will mention it here. He said, فَإِذَا دَخَلَ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ بِذَلِكَ أُلْزِمَ بِالْقِيَامِ بِبَقِيَّةِ خِصَالِ الْإِسْلَامِ. If a person became a Muslim with the shahada, with the kalima, then we will obligate on him to put into practice the remaining pillars of the Islam. But if he did not say the shahada, can you come and say to him, go and pray? Or fast? No, or perform hajj, because all of this will not be accepted until he said the shahada. So the shahadatain is what brings you to Islam, and the shahadatain is what makes the remaining principles of Islam become mandatory upon you. Alright, Ibn Rajab also mentioned that what brings you in Islam is what takes you out of Islam. So what makes somebody a Muslim? The Shahada. So what will make somebody not a Muslim? Denouncing the Shahada. Right? So here is a point of disagreement between the scholars. So some of the scholars said, as long as you say La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, if you did not pray, you are not a complete Muslim, but that will not take you out of the fold of Islam absolutely. I hope this is clear. So, yes.
So could you explain the difference between a Muslim and being a mu'min?
Ibn Rajab will expound on that as we move further. He mentioned that when he mentioned the word Islam by itself, without mu'min, iman next to it, then it includes Islam and Iman. And likewise, if Iman is mentioned by itself without Islam, then it includes Iman and Islam. But when they are mentioned together, then this is when we differentiate between them. Then Islam will take the appearing action, and Iman will take the action of the creed. But when we say you are a believer, that means that you pray, you fast, you perform pilgrimage to the sacred house of Allah. This is what will make you a true believer, right? If you say you are a Muslim, that also means that you believe in Allah, you believe in the last day. So these terminologies, if they are used by themselves, they are prerequisite of each other. But if they are mentioned together, then we differentiate between them, like the Prophet did in the Hadith. I hope this is clear now.
So is the Umrah is getting ready to make the Hajj? Are you preparation to make the Hajj?
Not necessarily the preparation is a separate ibadah by itself, right? Yeah. Some call it the minor Hajj. Okay. I can say it's a preparation for you because Hajj is more difficult than Umrah, and Hajj is a pillar, but Umrah is not a pillar. But is it mandatory? This is a point of disagreement amongst the scholars, and some of the scholars incline to the opinion that Umrah is mandatory. I hope this is clear. But it is not from the pillars. So if you perform Hajj, you perform Umrah along with with Hajj. So most of the time, whoever performs Hajj performs what? Umrah. But not whoever performs Umrah performs Hajj. I hope this is clear. Yeah.
I got a question there.
Yeah.
I heard you saying that when somebody said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, if he did not pray, that does not put him out of the Islam completely. But there are two different hadiths said, al-faslu alladhi baynana wa baynahum as-salat.
That's why I said it's a point of disagreement amongst the scholars, right? Some of the scholars said that whoever leaves the prayer is a kafir because of the ahadith that are mentioned. Others also, as long as the person says La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, this is what brings him into the deen. And others said, even those who do not pray, there are differentiation between them. They said if the person lived the prayer out of laziness, but not because he did not believe in the obligation of prayer, then that he is committing a major sin, but he's not a kafir. But if he said, no, prayer is not mandatory upon me, and therefore I'm not going to pray, then this is what will make him a kafir. Again, it's a point of what? Disagreement. Even the zakat, fasting to the end. So others said only prayer. If you live prayer, then this will make you a kafir, but if you live fasting, that will not make you a kafir. Others said any of the pillars, if you leave them, that will take you out of the fold of Islam. So Ibn Rajab mentioned here that if you say La ilaha illallah and you perform the rest of the pillars, then you are a true believer. But if you leave some of them, then your Islam is not complete. The more you leave, the weaker Islam is until you will remain without Islam. I hope this is clear. But again, you don't want to fall in the categories of those who are iffy. Are they Muslims or not? You want to take the precautionary measure and do the right thing. I mean, who wants to leave prayer because some of the scholars say if you leave prayer, you are not a kafir. The reason why the scholars are saying this is because there are other rights related to that. Because there are people who are Muslims, but maybe they just leave prayer because of what? Laziness. They have children. They have to the end. If we said they are not Muslims because we never see them pray, even though they never denounce Islam, that will affect their children, their wife. They cannot inherit from them. It's just a lot of ruling related to that. That's why before the scholars make a verdict, there's a lot of things they look into before placing that verdict. Now, he has to make up the years that he did not pay. As long as he knows that all those years that he did not pay the zakat in, he has enough money to pay zakat. So if you miss zakat for years, you have to pay the zakat that you miss.
How would you estimate it? Like, how would they go about with,
If you know how much you have in each year, then you pay the zakat according to that. So let's say 3 years ago you have 10,000. Then you take the nisab of 10,000 for that 3 years ago. The year after it, you have 20,000, right? The next year you make the nisab of 20,000, take it out. The year after you have 100,000, you make the nisab and take it out. That's how it goes.
basically got to be consistent?
Yeah, because it fluctuates. You give zakat based on what you have in that year. So this year you may have 10,000, next year you may have 5,000. So let's say the first year you have 100,000, you do not give the zakat of it. And then the year after, you have only 5,000. You still owe the zakat of 100,000. You still have to pay. So it will remain a debt on you, even though you did not have it in this current year. But it's a debt on you now.
Yeah. So, if you, it's about the fact, as long as you fast the Ramadan, okay, and you don't fast every Monday and Thursday, could you explain the difference between that?
The one who fasts Mondays and Thursdays will be above you. in Jannah. So you be sitting here and you look like, oh,
Okay. Different.
you understand?
Yes.
Whose mission is that?
Yes.
And they say that's the mission of Hajj
Yes.
or Fulan, because they fast Mondays and Thursdays. So the more good deeds you have, the higher your level will be in Jannah. Yes, that's all. But there is no sin on you. If you do not fast on Mondays and Thursdays, you are not going to be held accountable for that. The only fasting that you'll be held accountable for not fasting is the month of Ramadan. But, all of us are in need of, bonus and extra good deeds now.
Okay.
Here's Hajj. Hajj, yeah.
So to go back to the zakat. So all our years that you don't have the knowledge for that, and
Ignorance is not an excuse. Ignorance is not an excuse. Like you should know. If you're a Muslim, you should know. Al-ilmu qabla al-qawli wal-amal. You cannot run the red light and say, oh, I did not know. No, you're going to get a ticket regardless. You understand? So ignorance is not, now that you know, you have to pay the ticket. Now.
Sheikh, in terms of this zakat, a couple of years ago, you have enough money to take out zakat. You did not do it. And you become bankrupt, you become poor. How are you going to do that?
It's
You're
going to
be held accountable for that?
That is negligence. It's going to remain in debt on you. Just as it's also, if you have it, you have to pay. But if you don't have it, you're not going to be held accountable until you have it. Because of the general principle in Islam, la wajib ma'al ajaz wa la haram ma'al tirab. There's no obligation along with inability, and there is no haram along with necessity. So if a person is in a state of necessity, there's no such thing as haram. He has to do what he can in order to protect himself. And if you are unable to fulfill an obligation, you are not required to fulfill that obligation. But it's still going to remain a debt on you. When you have it, you have to pay. Like we mentioned about Hajj. If a person is financially able and physically able and did not perform Hajj until he died, you understand, he's procrastinating. So he's going to be held accountable for procrastinating in fulfilling that obligation.
Yes, so my question is, on the zakat also, said people working in the United States, they can tell you make $50,000 a year, but that money never been laying down.
Never accumulated.
Yeah, so you got it, whenever you got it to spend it. So you're supposed to pay that.
I mean, if you make $100,000 a year, but that money never accumulated, right? To which they saw, you are not going to be held accountable for that. I hope this is clear. As long as the money did not stay with you till, so let's say you make $10,000 a month. All right, some people make $10,000 a month, but then they have expenses that is more than $10,000. There's no zakat on them. But you make $1,000 a month, but you're able to save $500 because your expenses is what? $200. It's less. And then the year come around, you're able to save to $5,000 or $4,000, and the year come around and you still have the $4,000, you have to pay zakat. But the one who makes the $10,000 doesn't have to pay zakat because he did not reach.
They get it clear now.
No.
Alhamdulillah.
take the sweat off you. Take the sweat off.
All right. I think it's time for prayer, so we will start here and continue next week, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت